Zach Elliott. Feel free to argue. And wondering what people are thinking about the recent Iran assassination accusation thing. For the few of you who haven't heard it all about it, I'll talk a little bit first about what the accusations are, and then we'll look a little bit at the recent history of the FBI. And finally, I'm going to express some fairly serious doubts about the whole shebang. First, for the few of you who have not heard at all about this, apparently the FBI has once again foiled a terrorist plot. This time, supposedly an agent of the Iranian version of the CIA, the Quds, he was apparently trying to contract with someone to have them kill the Saudi ambassador to the United States in the United States. I guess the idea was to, you know, set off a bomb while he was eating at his favorite restaurant. So, and of course there have been lots of statements from like Eric Holder and Hillary Clinton and various pundits near and far about, you know, how serious this is and, you know, how many laws it violates and blah, 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 blah. Okay. First thing I'd like to do to remind everybody of is that you are taking the government's say-so for all of this. There has been no evidence presented. Everything is assertions and like the complaint, you know, which is like probably the only really public aspect of this, aside from, you know, various statements by people who have an interest in the outcome. So that, and when you couple it with like kind of the recent history of the FBI in this sort of thing, which is, I think, coming, you know, disturbingly close, if not actually already being entrapment in a lot of cases. Then you look at the person who is supposedly the mastermind behind this thing and find out that they are a failed used car dealer from Texas, which is kind of an interesting cover for a terrorist mastermind. And then you have like the whole notion of like the Iranians doing this on American soil, and supposedly it sounds like, you know, American officials think that like high levels of the Iranian administration are actually directly responsible for this. I just have to say that given the FBI's kind of recent experiences where it's come out that they have often provided like, you know, material support, you know, to the people who they, you know, eventually captured and thwarted, you know, giving them money, helping them with their plans, you know, hooking them up with people, etc. So I think we're in very, very blurry territory, and a lot of what's going on a lot of the time is the FBI justifying its existence and satisfying various policy goals of the Obama administration, like looking like they're tough on terrorism, when really what they're really good at is creating terrorists. But that's been dealt with in other videos, and I don't want to really get into that whole harangue now. I want to kind of stay on this topic. The final thing is that I really want to address is I have not seen anything really plausible talking about how it would really benefit Iran, regardless of, like, you know, how hostile you think they are as an entity. I mean, in the final analysis, I think you can look at Iran's actual actions on the world stage, and I think it's hard to call them, to say that they're not rational actors. I think in most cases they act, in virtually all cases, they act like rational actors. So, trying to look at the situation and find a benefit for them, it's just really hard to find. I mean, mostly, Iran looking like it's behind this benefits Iran's principal enemies, which are the United States, Israel, and Saudi Arabia, all of which, you know, wish Iran harm, all of which are continuously looking for excuses to make Iran's, you know, life more miserable. I mean, there have been people who have argued that this is kind of Iran flexing its muscles because it feels comfortable in the wake of the Arab Spring, and it feels that it's got its like opponents on the run, and this is like a new, more powerful, more assertive Iran. But I mean, I think this is just, not to put too fine a point on it, this is just, that's neocon hooey. It just doesn't jive with the facts of the Iranian situation. I mean, it's not a very comfortable and stable time for Iran. I mean, they just had the Green Revolution 2 years ago, and I mean, none of the underlying tensions which caused that, regardless, you know, of their abilities in like kind of suppressing that movement, regardless of that, those underlying tensions still exist in the Iranian society. So it's, I think Ahmadinejad, whose name I have a hard time saying, he is fighting for his life domestically, you know, pretty much on an ongoing basis. I don't think he wants, I mean, as much as he like yells about the exterior threats, I don't think he really wants any more. I don't think he would do anything to precipitate actual threats that he would then be compelled to deal with. I think he feels much more comfortable when he's in a position of just yelling about things that, and making them seem frightening so he can agitate his people, much like the leaders of our country do with us. But unlike the leader of Iran, we actually go and, you know, do the things that we talk about. You know, when we're talking in a hostile way about a country, you know, oftentimes we'll find ourselves, you know, bombing that country and putting our troops in that country. So there's a little bit more menace to our threats than there are to Iran's. So I guess in the final analysis, I just want everybody to really, really, you know, talk about the fact that this is only the U.S. position. Talk about the fact that no evidence has been offered, and do it now. Because, like, as Glenn Greenwald pointed out, if like today, you know, Obama decided that, you know, he wanted to go with Iran, to war with Iran, there would be plenty of people who, based on this quite possibly almost entirely fabricated incident, would be willing to cheer him on and say, well, it's about time. And sure, we need to show them what for after what they were planning to do to that Saudi ambassador on our soil. So, because the threat of that is real, and because you know there are lots of people in the government who want to attack Iran, if for no other reason than it's sitting on huge piles of natural resources like oil and uranium, then, I don't know, just think about it, talk about it, make sure that everybody knows that, you know, if we go to war based on this, we are quite likely going to war on false pretenses, just like we did on Iraq, just like we did with the Gulf of Tonkin, just like we have many, 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 many times before. So the threat from each one of these things is real. You got to take it seriously. Anyway, it's been Zach Elliott, and you can always feel free to argue. Have a good day, people.